is going on, everybody? I'm Clark Taylor, and I'm your host today for the Wrestling Republic daily broadcast. It's March 23rd, the day before my kid sister Katie Taylor's birthday. Shout out, Katie. Happy birthday, Kathy. I hope you're having a good one, and I love you. But also, more importantly than that, we've got a super special broadcast for today. Not only is it Throwback Thursday, as usual, not only are we going to get into Dynamite, but we have Monster, my hometown, Chicago, CM Punk news, and we've got the big boss man himself in the building today to let you guys know what's going on, what's the scoop, and why we're talking Punk when we haven't seen him since September of 22. And so on that note, before I introduce my other co-host, Anthony Ricciardi, my usual co-host, I'm going to introduce the big boss, the owner of Wrestling Republic, Ben Allison. Talk to me, my friend.
Hello. Great to be here today. Did not expect to be here, but of course, this big news story broke in the last, half an hour, really. It completely threw a spanner in the works in terms of what was planned for today's show. But yeah, for those of you guys who haven't heard, CM Punk took to Instagram about half an hour ago and posted a really long rant on his Instagram story about Tony Khan, John Moxley, Chris Jericho, Dave Meltzer, quite a lot of people, and then deleted the post just 60 seconds after. It was completely bizarre, but I'm going to very quickly read it all out to you in case you haven't heard it. Sigh. I wasn't clear to come back to wrestle yet. Then plan was to wrestle at the pay-per-view. I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie. I thought the idea sucked, but the boss wanted to do it. Whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I never experienced somebody refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this is what he wanted. He said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay, but I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could be a squash, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scoffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change. But I'll never put a company above my health again. So this really shocked everybody when it came out. Social media has blown up, even though it's only been 30 minutes since it was posted. Basically, for those of you guys who don't know what he was referencing, Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer boards or something. I'm obviously sure we don't want to get into spoilers and dirt sheets, all that type of stuff. But Dave Meltzer, wrestling journalist, he did a post on his forum which said that CM Punk was meant to face John Moxley earlier, but he then later on sent a legal letter which pushed the feud of Moxley back, which is why it felt all jam-packed in the last couple of weeks before All Out. CM Punk's Instagram story was seemingly in response to this. It was a bit of a weird one. But yeah, it's a bit of a shock CM Punk hasn't seen Rocky, to be honest with you. I think that's one of the biggest talking points of the entire thing. But yeah, Dave Meltzer, according to Punk, is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. And yeah, John Moxley and Tony Khan, which is almost the biggest thing from it, apparently tried to persuade him to wrestle before he was cleared, which, of course, if it is true, is a big no-no to a lot of people, and is something which could be very, very bad for AEW from a legal perspective, from a sponsor perspective, and from, certain state regulations as well. That could be very bad if states find out that it's true. Altogether, it's really, really bad news for AEW. Some people are saying that it is a work. Well, let me tell you something right now. This would be the most stupid work in professional wrestling history if it is true, because it's going to get AEW in an absolute load of trouble, put sponsors off them. It's awful. This is an awful look for AEW. Now, the good news is, to wrestling fans, I think most people are not really believing a lot of what Punk's saying here. But it's more than mainstream sponsors that might be a little bit of a worry for them. But yeah, I mean, I did not expect this today. And I know, Anthony, you're from Philadelphia yourself. I mean, are you surprised that, are you surprised at all that he hasn't watched Rocky?
Oh, I think that's complete bullshit. I mean, at one time he lived in Philly when he worked for Ring of Honor. I find, and he's a sports guy. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. Did he not see Rocky 3? I find that a little hard to believe too. But just as a whole, I mean, this. I would wonder if what sparked this random post of anger from Punk. I wonder if it had something to do with them covering up his image on the truck last night during Dynamite.
Could be. And for those of you guys who don't know what's being referenced there, basically on Dynamite last night, they did an angle, which I'm sure Clark and Anthony are going to get into later, where the Young Bucks were taken out and were taken to the hospital by a truck, an AEW production truck, and there was cardboard covering Punk on the production truck. So he was very clearly left out of that segment. That led to social media saying, "Well, CM Punk clearly took out both of the Young Bucks," and that's what happened. But I think this Instagram story has put to bed all of those rumors and speculation, and I think it must be somebody else instead. Now, who it is, we don't really know yet, and you guys, I'm sure, will speculate on that later. But yeah, this is a truly shocking development. I mean, Clark, I know part of you thinks it still could be a work.
It's fascinating, and it's funny to me because, you know, I'm a resident Chicago kid. I was born in Chicago, named after Clark Street, and you know, and Anthony's from Philly. So the Rocky disrespect, I don't even appreciate out of one of our own, like CM Punk, when it comes to that's not even cool with me.
If anybody's going to comment on this, it should be the guy from Chicago and the guy from Philly. We are the most qualified to discuss this.
But at the same time, I got to say, he's a Chicago dude. There's got to be some sort of working, even if it's not a planned work, there's some sort of working involved, because I just believe in CM Punk. I think Phil Brooks can figure it out, and I think a big group of grown men can figure out how to make money off of what happened, because of how much in the 2023 and 2022, which are years that are very different than what we grew up with in pro wrestling. And I think in today's day and age, a legit borderline news story, news. I'm not talking just wrestling news, like news story. With Punk and what he said at Brawl Out, and then the fallout from Brawl Out. If we can't capitalize on that, what are we doing in pro wrestling? Really? Come on, man. It's just a softball. It's like a hanging curveball in baseball. You better hit a home run.
One thing I will add, though, is you mentioned about the grown men and the stuff. Like grown men, they could resolve it. Well, here's the thing. Grown men don't really go on a rant on Instagram stories and then delete it 60 seconds later. Like, come on. Like, at least if he was going to do it. I think there's a lot of egos involved.
I know.
I think
I'm with you there. Get in the same room. Get on the same page. But again, if all that Instagram stuff can play into it, then it can play into it, and then it's electric, and it's everything we want in wrestling. Because what do we talk about when we talk about how great the Bloodline storyline is? How real it feels. How much it feels like it's genuine. All of that stuff. Yeah. This feels genuine as anything, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
And if they can play that out on screen, and I'll point to Matt Hardy and Edge back in the day, things like that. There's precedent. It is doable. Right?
Mark, I agree with you. It is doable. It was done with Shawn and Brett. It was done with Edge and Matt Hardy. I would say the difference between this situation and those is that was the egos of two individuals.
Right.
In this instance, it's the egos of at least 5 people, the members of the Elite and Punk.
Although, by the way, I don't want to totally cut you off, but I would add add Lita to the mix. It was at least it was 3. Not that I'm not trying to nitpick, but that's just unfair to Lita.
No, absolutely. So I mean, there are more people involved with this, and I would argue that the people involved with this are more stubborn, or known to be more stubborn in that instance. Like, I think if Punk comes back, which is entirely possible because he is technically still under contract. So I'm not saying, it's not possible at all. I think it would be hard to bring him back to work with them. And that's where the money is. So you not only have the elite problem, you also have whether or not it's legit or not, whatever issues he may have with Moxley, whether he has issues with Jericho, who he's worked with both of them in the past. Now, I would think Moxley and especially Jericho are smart enough to know they can draw money with this. The question is, would they all be willing to put all that shit aside and do business?
I don't think so.
That I'm not convinced that they are. But I think, Punk posting this now is interesting. I don't know if that was in response, like I said, to what happened last night, or maybe something that happened that we don't know about. We haven't heard anything about this. Like, it's been quiet since the whole shitstorm. And quite frankly, and I wrote about this when this happened, a lot of this shit could have been avoided if the first time this happened with the hangman went off script thing, Tony Khan should have stepped up and solved this before it escalated. It didn't. Then Punk escalated it again. And as far as we know, nothing was done with it. And it further escalated. And then, the all-out media scrum from hell took place. And the only one that benefited from it was Mindy's getting their place advertised. It's a bad look for Tony Khan. It's a bad look for AEW. Even this, whether this post is a work or whether it's legit, Punk was pissed and then went, shit, this may get me in trouble. Let me take it down. Regardless, it's a bad look. It's a bad look for the company with sponsors, with a TV contract that's going to be coming up within, isn't it 24 that their TV deal's up with Turner?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so their contract's going to be running out within the next 9 months, give or take. 9 months to a year. So the last thing you want to do is it to be out there, whether it's true or not, that you asked one of your talents to work when they weren't medically cleared.
I hear that.
It expires later this year.
Yeah, so the point being, you don't want that out there, whether it's true or not, because people tend to believe what they want to believe. So even if it's not true, well, I heard this. They're all lying. Like, it's a problem for the company to have that image further tarnished because they're trying to get away from what took place at All Out. It overshadowed MJF's return, which I'm just saying there are a number of problems that they need to resolve.
So what I'll say is, and I don't want to go on a big rant, but I'll go on a bit of a rant here, is if they can't figure this out, the ethos, the initial impact of AEW on the professional wrestling industry as a whole, we heard the line from Daniel Garcia last night about, he slipped and said pro wrestler and not sports entertainer. And the idea of handing creative to the performer in a way that hasn't been done in years, in a way that hasn't been done in a long time, right? All of that, I don't want to say hinges on CM Punk because it doesn't directly hinge on CM Punk. It's not all on him. But the bad news bears, the little engine that could, the performers that said, this isn't enough, we can be better than this, that left WWE, why this all started, it is severely hurt if the locker room can't put their differences aside and figure out how to work with Phil Brooks, CM Punk. It's just the case. It's that simple because it goes against everything the entire company is built on. That is not what AEW is built on in the first place. And if you have Cody Rhodes, who was a former EVP, leave and go main event WrestleMania and win, it's a good look and it's a bad look in some ways. But then if you compile that with the CM Punk situation and losing other talents and television deals and issues like that, we're in real trouble. And this CM Punk thing, I think, is deeper than as simple as CM Punk and can he get along with the other kids on the playground at recess. It's not that simple. It's just not. It isn't. And we've treated it as such because pro wrestling can be that way often when it comes to situations like this. And that's no knock on you guys. I know you guys, I'm not invalidating you guys' opinions in any way when I say that. But I think generally speaking, that's been the tone on the Punk situation. And I don't know what CM Punk does day to day, but I'll tell you what, it's not a lot of talking to a ton of people backstage because he's rehabbing a torn tricep. And so once that's rehabbed and he's cleared, then things really matter. Social media posts, to your point, Allison, and I'm not calling you out on this, but earlier you mentioned, guys don't make social media posts or whatever. Well, guys also don't get hung up on social media posts. And I'm not saying that that's what we've done or the whole wrestling community's done, but I'm a little bit saying that. The IWC sits here and looks at this and goes, oh my goodness, CM Punk, he said something again. And it's more eyes on CM Punk. So the day he returns, we remember this day where we're all talking about CM Punk over people that go and work bell to bell every day. There's something to that. Right, wrong, or indifferent, there is something to that. You cannot keep your eyes off CM Punk. We can't. I'll wholeheartedly admit it. I'm a huge fan, but none of us can keep our eyes off of him. And if he comes back on screen, no matter where it is, and I still believe personally that it's AEW, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Punk is the bigger brand than AEW. He's really the biggest name for them. I mean, yeah, Jericho's there, but like Punk really is the biggest name of that they have, other than, I mean, yes, Sting's there, Jericho's there, but like realistically, the one that's drawing in the viewers, because the numbers don't lie, when Punk was there, the numbers were better than they are now. And
Punk, MJF was drawing higher numbers per TV.
No, but listen, MJF is a once in a generation talent. Like, he's the best mic guy that's in the business right now. There no question. But as far as somebody that could draw money for them, Punk's the guy. So I think, if he comes back, the question is whether or not Tony Khan's going to do what he should do and pull them aside and go, okay, are you people going to act like adults and do business? If you can't, then we're done here. Like, he needs to, the problem is, and I think Tony wants to be friends with everybody, and I don't fault him for it, but at the same time, there's a point where you need to be the boss. So he may be forced to choose. Okay, am I going to side with Punk, who, has established himself in the business and made money? Or am I going to side with the guys who brought me to the dance in the Bucks and Kenny and all? But at the end of the day, it's Tony's company. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's his call. So if he wants Punk back and sides with Punk and the other ones will get pissed, whether it's Jericho, whether it's the Elite, whoever backstage, okay, there's the door. It's his company. He's going to run it the way he wants. Same difference with Billy Corgan with NWA. He got all this shit for giving the NWA title to Titus. It's his company. He can do whatever he wants with it. If you like it, fine. If you don't have to watch. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's his company. Vince got that shit too. Again, it's still his company. So, I mean, you got to listen to the audience, but at the same point, It's your call.
Yeah.
Whether the company succeeds or fails is ultimately on you and who you put out there, your investment, your stuff, what you're going to do. So, ultimately that's what it is. So if there is a real mutiny with the locker room with Jericho, and all that stuff, that all needs to be resolved before Punk steps foot in an AEW building ever again. That shit's got to be resolved. Yeah. And if it can't be, give him the money, buy him out, because the longer he stays and you don't know what's going on with him, the more chance of something like this happening. If you buy him out, say, okay, we'll give you this money. However, you cannot discuss any of this. You cannot disparage the company. If you do, you're in breach. That's all you have to do. But instead, you have this situation where every time AEW makes one step forward, they're taking 2 steps back because now they have to address Punk yet again for whatever the nonsense is.
No, I think that is a fantastic point there you made, Anthony. And listen, what you said about the fact that Tony Khan should have got them all in the same room, I think is bang on what they should have done. But here's the thing, it's too late. Because the fact is, right, you could have gotten them all in the same room. Punk, the Young Bucks, and Kenny, gotten them all in the same room, Hangman too, and said, okay, guys, sort it out. Otherwise, if anybody doesn't want to sort it out, you're gone. Because the truth is, AEW could survive without Kenny Omega. It could survive without the Young Bucks. It could survive without Hangman Page. However, it could not survive without those 4 names, plus John Moxley and Hangman. Well, sorry, it could survive, but it won't survive to the level it's on. CM Punk isn't worth all 7 of them, right? He simply is not. Listen, I know Moxley at this stage in his career, this stage of his life, he is not putting up with bullshit or anything like that. And you can tell it's serious, as I sworn on the podcast the first time in a while. But he is not putting up with any of that. There is zero chance, right, that even if Tony Khan goes up to him and says, this is great for business, John Moxley, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think at this point in his career he cares that much for business. He cares about having fun and all that stuff. And sure, if you can do well for the business during it, that's great. Jericho, we know Jericho is stubborn. I think if you throw crazy money at Jericho and say have a match with Punk, I think he might take it. But unless you're doing that, I do not think it's possible. The Young Bucks, Kenny, no way. I think it's completely off the cards at this point. Hangman's been completely quiet on the situation, so we don't know his thoughts. However, I think Hangman, similar to Mark, is probably the type of guy who doesn't want that BS, right? So we're in a situation now where it's kind of Punk versus 6-7 of these guys. And I think Tony Khan would be stupid to choose Punk especially when a lot of the locker room are also siding with the Elite always have sided with the Elite from the start. So they should have sorted it out. It was bad management from the start because they could have turned this into one of the best works in modern wrestling history, if not the best work, right? But the fact is, Tony Khan did not get them all in the same room early and sort it out like men. Instead, it's all gone on social media. They've not all been in the same room. It's just talking behind each other's backs, and it's become a bigger thing. Jericho's gotten involved. Moxley's now involved. CM Punk today criticized AEW and Tony Khan. Tony Khan cannot bring back somebody who's criticized him. I know Vince has over the years and all that, but the difference was Vince had already proven himself when he did that. Tony has still not fully proved himself in this business. It would look embarrassing for the company. It would. Going into new TV deals, it would make Tony Khan look like a pushover, which is the opposite of what they want. It's at the point where it's 6 or 7 versus 1, and I really cannot justify at all siding with CM Punk because they're not going to work together.
And honestly, the most fascinating part of this shitstorm, if you want to call it that, all started with a promo with Hangman. And he's the only one that was not involved with all the insanity. He's like the only one. He didn't get suspended. He's on TV. And it all started with him allegedly going off script. And quite frankly, I watched that promo. I didn't really think he crossed the line too much. And Punk is enough of an expert that he navigated that. I remember watching that live thinking to myself, wow, this promo seems a little different. But at the same point, I didn't think it was going off script. And then when it the story came out that it was, I went, okay, that does make sense. But what happened was, instead of resolving it right then, it festered. And then Punk overstepped the line where he called Hangman out when Hangman was not involved with anything with Punk. So it made Hangman look like shit because Hangman can't go out there. So and Tony didn't deal with it then. No. Then, Dave posted stuff. Punk believes it came from the Bucks. Makes sense because the Bucks are so close to Dave. And that festered. And then it turned into a mess. So it's a problem for them that, as much as everybody from the elite doing interviews going, no, we're good now. We're moving past it. You can't sweep this under the rug. No. It's not going away. So you people need to figure out, are you doing business together, or it was a nice 1-year run? We wish you best in your future endeavors, and be done with it. They need to make that decision, because the longer they're playing this game of going, let's wait it out, it keeps coming back and biting them in the ass.
I will say, the 7 months of injury rehab, though, guys, the 7 months of injury rehab is a built-in. You have to wait that out.
Oh, no.
And it hasn't been 7 months.
No, I understand that, but at the same point, you need
He's
to
not healthy.
Out,
He's not cleared to wrestle now.
No, I get it.
He's clear to be in the same room as them.
Yeah, you don't need to be cleared to be on the phone or be in the room with them.
Does he have to be? Are they that petty?
Yes. I think so.
Well, I mean, look at it. They waited, right? So,
I feel like we're making a lot of assumptions about how petty the Young Bucks, Jericho,
why are they still making
guys on the roster are that make comments. Well, I mean, people make comments all the time, right? That doesn't make you petty. I would make sly comments sarcastically, maybe about somebody that scorned me. But I would also forgive them, giving an apology and it like, hey, can we work together? I messed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them are doing that.
But I'll make comments, and especially in the business that they're in, it seems remarkably soft, SAWFT of me to and short-sighted for that matter to make the assumption that not only would all the EVPs involved, I mean, Cody Rhodes, if we'd have made the same assumptions about Cody Rhodes, he wouldn't have been smart enough to sign with the WWE 2 years ago, because the assumption would be he's got as cushy of a job as it gets in the industry.
No one expected him to jump when he did.
And so my point is I think we're overlooking that it is pro wrestling. I mean,
anything's possible. I'm not saying it's
piss
not.
each other off, right? We get news. It's ironic because we get news about Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara and Andrade and Malachi and everything that's happening backstage. And that stuff happens in WWE. Probably doesn't leak as quickly. Because
it leaks quicker. That's
I don't know, man.
That part I'm gonna have to say
maybe.
No about. There's more
we got Jericho and Goldberg.
Okay, either way, the net of it is grown men and grown women, for that matter, in a locker room, in an athletic, competitive industry. Because despite what we know about professional wrestling, it is competitive. You do want to be the best at your craft. And if you are, you'll be rewarded for it. So that part of it is competitive, right? Yeah. And for people to be so immature that they can't get over some verbal jabs in a press conference, like really?
I think it goes beyond the press conference, Clark. I think it goes to the other matter in the locker room.
It's not the issue, right? But I will say this: Tony Khan,
seems remarkably soft.
Larry's not over it.
Tony Khan's approach to it, right, was that, hey, let's give a Punk time to recover, then we can sort it all out once it's sorted. What you're saying, Clark, and what you said at the time that they should do is what they ended up doing. But here's the thing: it's not gotten better with time; it's gotten worse with time. The reality is that was the decision which Tony Khan made, and it didn't end up playing out the way which he wanted it to play out. And because of that, now they're in a situation where before it was, Punk versus 3 to 4 guys. Now it's Punk versus 6 guys. And those 6 guys now include Jericho and Moxley. Because I'm telling you now, after this post, Moxley will not work with him again. Because Moxley's a no bullshit thing. And Jericho, Jericho. If you read Jericho's books, you know that Jericho's
You're letting the inmates run the asylum, so now it's an indictment on Tony Khan. It's an entirely different conversation.
I've criticized Tony Khan this entire process that he's done.
But at that point, what I would say is it's as simple as you don't have to get along to work together, and that's never been. They don't even have to reconcile to work together.
I just don't think they will. I just don't think they will.
And if they don't, though, it's the most selfish thing you've ever seen in the history of wrestling, because you're now burying the one company that, and so that's where I find it. I think these guys are smart enough. I think they are in tune enough to the business. The Bucks, Kenny included. I even think Moxley. I think Punk too.
Mox would not.
No,
I think he would. I absolutely.
No, I don't.
He already isn't working with people.
He's smart enough.
Mox will do what's best for AEW, and I don't believe he believes that putting Punk over would be best for AEW.
I don't want to speak on Mox's behalf.
I'm just guessing.
I believe in Mox's. I believe in Mox as a logical guy and a mind for the business after reading the book. I think Mox absolutely would. He doesn't have to do anything other than shake his hand and say, okay, whatever, right? They don't have to have a rivalry. They don't have to wrestle. They don't have to do anything.
They do the same locker room.
But I think Mox being a grown man, it could allow CM Punk back in the locker room in a heartbeat.
That's true. I agree with you. I 100% agree. I just don't agree that they could wrestle again. But it's the case of he's still. You can't wrestle Mox, you can't wrestle Jericho, you can't wrestle Kenny, you can't wrestle Bucks, you can't wrestle Hangman. It's ridiculous.
In my honest opinion, the one name out of those
does make it harder
that I do not believe at all. And really, this out of them, this is the biggest money match you could do. Will be Hangman and Punk, because that's where it originated. I don't believe they would work together. To me, that's the money
match you can do is Punk and MJF.
Yeah,
I don't think it has anything to do with anybody else.
I think MJF would work.
That's the one they were building towards.
I mean,
Punk and MJF is the match to build towards.
Honestly,
I don't think you need to even involve the rest of them.
No,
you can make Punk the ROH captain too after that if he loses to MJF.
Honestly, what I would do with this, because this is such a shitstorm, if they can come to an agreement for Punk to come back for one final match, just one, you do it all out if it's in Chicago, 1 year after the event, and have him face MJF, put MJF over, and call it a day. Because Punk is stuck in this situation where there's talent in AEW, there's talent in WWE. They've both said, various people, they don't want to work with him. Seth Rollins has said he doesn't want to work with them. Roman said he would be willing to work with them. But, I mean, Punk doesn't have many options. So it's either you sit out and keep collecting Tony's money because you don't want to do business, or they don't want to do business, or whatever the story is. Do you go back to WWE and do a one-off and get your WrestleMania main event, which is entirely a possibility at this point? Or do you just walk away from the business? You have FU money, so it's not real. It's not really like
I don't think he has FU money, and I also don't think it makes sense for him to walk away from the business. I think at the end of the day, CM Punk, I think
you have to walk away from.
I'm hard pressed to believe that all of this the last year was enough compared to what we've seen from other people and whatnot, like in the way he was welcomed back with open arms when he returned in the first place.
It was a different locker room.
I get it. It's like whatever. And I get there's like 5 people that are all upset or whatever, but it's such reckless speculation because I feel like it's one of those things where, you know, if we never have it paid off, then yes, it turns out this was all true. But how can you guys not get on the same page? It seems
I agree with that.
The fact that the three of us sitting here right now, I think the majority of the audience sitting here right now is like, wait a minute, CM Punk and all of them, like just on paper, like you can't put your differences aside and make all that money.
They can't act
because
like
we'd
adults.
watch the
That's
match. No, and I get that, and we can beat that drum all we want.
Yeah. No,
and
but
we've done it plenty,
at.
Anthony. We've done it plenty. Believe me.
Yeah.
We beat that drum plenty today.
Yeah.
Enough times. I've heard it 1,000 times. But the net of it is, at the end of the day, if they can't work together, then it's an immaturity issue. And how are we not blaming the talent? Because that's ridiculous. That's absurd. No. But we're all blaming CM Punk. We're not blaming the other guys.
We're blaming everybody.
We're blaming them all.
I don't know.
I blame them all.
Because I don't know. Then how could you even take a rivalry seriously between them and between the Bucks and anyone, the Elite and anyone between? I mean, how can you take Cody Rhodes seriously at that point?
What does that have to do with this?
I mean, he's gone and turned his back on AEW the same way.
His contract ran out. He went to another company. What's that have to do with Punk and the Elite?
So let's go back to the original point I made, which was the AEW was built on, the powers to the wrestlers and the locker room atmosphere, right, would be given that creative is in the hands of the wrestlers. So if they're not adults enough to work it out and Cody bailed, that's pretty telling. And I would say, especially given his space in the company, right? Even, right? There's no cushier job than EVP, right? I said that earlier, and it's interesting. It's one of those things. It's one of those things where it to me, it feels like a lot of assumptions about a lot of people's opinions.
It is.
And similar to Cody, who we made a lot of assumptions about, and then he did what he did. It would be really telling to me if the talent in AEW couldn't figure out how to work with CM Punk again. That would be remarkably telling. But I've repeated that a couple times.
But that's the thing, Clark. I don't want it to come across like I'm blaming just the Elite for this. Tony's responsible for this. Punk's responsible. They're all responsible for it because they all could have handled this. It's not just one person's selfishness that caused all this. Like, this is not one of those situations, and that's the big thing. Now, the Cody thing, he handled that privately. No one had to know. There was no social media posts and all this other nonsense. That's the difference. It was handled like an adult. I don't like the direction this company's taken, so I'm going to take the opportunity somewhere else.
That's not what I said.
But I'm just saying.
Cody, that's not what I said at all. All I said was it's telling about the whole thing if they all can't work with each other, right? That's all.
I get it. It is 100%. Everybody involved in the situation is at blame somewhat, but I'd say from Moxley's point of view, right? I think it'd be more of he just wouldn't want to work with Punk, right? I don't think he'd have a huge issue if he did come back. Maybe he'd talk to Tony, but I don't think he'd go anywhere beyond that. But like I said, Moxley's at a point in his life career where he doesn't want any BS, which is why I just don't think he'd want to work with Punk again after the thing today. So Moxley, I don't think's at blame at all. Apart from if the cleared story is true, then yeah, Tony Khan and Moxley are both to blame for that. But yeah, another thing which is telling is, I don't know if you guys have heard Renee Paquette talk about the all-out situation at all. When she's asked Talent about it, she's not openly discussed it herself, but she's asked Talent about it. She asked Kenny about it and all that. And the way she words it, I'm going to be honest, her and Punk were friends, and I really do not think they're friends anymore after it, because she talks about it like it's some, really sickening thing. Like, you can see she gets slightly annoyed when she mentions it, which is why I do think that there's issues with Moxley Punk too. There's a lot of layers to this that we don't know about, but I honestly can't. I think it's gone too far now. At the start, everyone was childish. Tony Khan should have gotten them in the same room. Obviously, Punk wasn't clear. He should have gotten them in the same room and said, Punk, once you're cleared in 7 months, we can meet up again and we can all discuss things and all of that. But before that, nobody says anything online. And right now, unless you all shake hands before you leave here, you're all fired or something like that, right? Or maybe not quite as bluntly as that. But Tony Khan really should have showed some balls and showed that he was in control of the situation. Instead, it seemingly was they did some investigation. They never revealed what the results were of it, and also they didn't fire anybody after it, or any consequences after it. The Young Bucks and Kenny returned to AEW TV, and Punk hasn't really been seen. It just seemingly,
right?
Ace Steel.
Sorry, Ace Steel did go.
Ace
Steel. Sorry, yeah. That is true, but apart from that, there was no other consequences from the situation, and it was a very weird thing. It almost seemed like, not even almost, this was Tony Khan's thought process was very clearly that he's wanted to give it time, and time heals wounds, which is true. Apart from, I don't think 7 months or however many months it's going to end up being is going to be enough time. I don't think 12 months is going to be enough time. I think it's going to be years before you could get them in the same room again at this point. I think the right response was they should have tackled it earlier. However, again, in fairness, it's easy saying this now. If you go back to After All Out,
I think the injury is the biggest part, though, right? Like he had to rehab. He had to go home. You have to go home to rehab an injury.
Tony could have flew them all out to meet Punk.
I guess.
He could have. That's what.
You still got to convince him to go. You got to convince him to go.
But he's got balls. He's got. He's the owner of the company.
Yeah, I'd sit and give it time, man.
At the end of the day,
and then you don't
have to be in the same building.
I don't think it makes it worse. Time heals all. Is a
you don't even have to get on a plane to have this conversation.
Yeah, but how much time? Because
time heals all. Time heals all.
Brett and Vince ended up being, well, not fine, but they ended up being in the same ring. Brett and Sean's another one too.
Well, that took about 14 years.
Brett and Goldberg would be the opposite example while we're hot.
You're not going to see, right? It's not going to happen in a year. And admittedly, at the time, we thought maybe it would. And we all thought that perhaps it could. But now, in hindsight, it really has not. And it's made things worse. And I don't think they're going to get better in a few months. I think maybe in 5 years' time, we could get them in the same room. But at that point, Punk's probably too old to wrestle. So I think that's why it's done.
Yeah, but now you're making assumptions on their ability to give forgiveness.
Oh, come on. We followed this situation. They're completely dissing each other. They're doing slight digs at each other all the time. They're all childish. They're all not willing to forgive each other.
I talk shit to all my closest friends.
No. They're not friends. Right?
Kobe!
I talk shit to all my closest friends.
They're not friends. It's gotten worse. The situation has gotten worse.
Nah.
Come on.
They're punking each other out.
Matt Williams in the chat says, time didn't bring my girlfriend back, Clark. I mean, there we are. Time doesn't heal all wounds, does it, Clark? But
that's tough.
I've been there.
Did you get a new one? Time brought a new one. See?
But I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is, it's not really a joke that in wrestling there's a lot of egos, and time does heal wounds. But when there's big egos at play, you need a lot of time. I don't think Punk can return. I know, Clark, you obviously disagree.
He's coming back.
But we're going to have to wait and see. That's the truth. We're going to have to wait and see. But
I need time and compromise for this to work. And I don't know who would be willing to give.
Anthony, the Eagles signed Michael Vick.
Hey, all I'm saying is people got to put egos aside. That's all I'm saying.
They do. They do.
That's
okay, wait. Are we actually going to get into Dynamite?
Yeah,
by the
you
way?
guys should. I'm gonna head off.
We have 15 minutes left. We're just going to bang through
I'm gonna
Dynamite.
be honest.
15.
If you guys want to go longer,
want us to do the normal episode?
Yeah, we'll go as long as we can.
Yeah,
we'll go as long as it's fun.
There you are. But I mean, yeah. But it's
I was gonna ask you. I'm like, how long do you want to stay? I'm not trying to kick you out.
I'm gonna head off now. But
go to bed.
I hope you guys have a great rest of the episode. Guys, keep on watching, listen to what their thoughts on Dynamite and Throwback Thursday, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, guys. See you.
All right, we're doing a double today.
It's just us. It's Dynamite time. I mean, honestly, as much as I love talking Punk, we can easily do it. We can go as long as we need. Just got the permission from Allison, I don't know if I can actually go the full 90 minutes, but we'll go as long as we
Let's see where
can.
we go. We say that
That's
every week, and
extreme.
then
I was gonna say
yeah.
like an hour and 15 might make sense.
Well, let's see what we can do.
Something like that. But
Okay.
let's start with the beginning of Dynamite.
Yes.
Now that we're here.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, we've got the Young Bucks getting laid out.
Yeah. Well,
and taken off.
mm-hmm.
Did you have any thoughts on? Okay, because also I know that that's followed up on later in the show.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, did you see anything that you think, where do we go from here?
Okay. Do you want me to go from the beginning into where it ended up and just do one thing?
Yeah.
It's funny little things that you notice when they were stretching out Matt Jackson. I don't know why I noticed this, but I did crack up when he was on the stretcher and he only had one sneaker on. I don't know why. I thought that was funny. You know, one of the things that was visible or was pointed out online was obviously Punk's picture being covered up. I'm not covering Punk again, but that was something that was there or not there technically. I mean, my thought where this is going, based on how it played out at the end, I think Don Callis is the new manager of Blackpool Combat Club. That's what I think. I think he's trying to break the Bucks off of Kenny now, because that was implied. Kenny's like, I should be there. And Don's like, no, the kids will be fine in a couple of months. And then that fake dive that he took, that, Hangman hit me with the 2x4. You know, I think that's being designed to prevent the Elite from coming back together. And I'm wondering whether or not, with the new aggressive style of the Blackpool Combat Club, whether or not Don is, quote unquote, the invisible hand guiding them, since now Regal is back with WWE. I wonder whether or not that's the direction they're going to go with it. That was my first thought. The other thought that I had when Hangman returned was, okay, we're just ripping off Austin here, right? Where he stole an ambulance and went back to the arena. I immediately went, we're going Austin with this, right? Another cowboy. That's what we're going with. But I do think I'm assuming it's going to blood and guts, the War Games ripoff match that they have, or AEW's version of it. So I think that's where it's going. And I think Don may be with them, with Combat Club. But it was so telegraphed. Like, it's not even like. I do
really like, though, the idea that you presented there. I'm like, okay, so with the idea of Don going to Combat Club, it makes sense. At the same time, though, I don't know does Kenny stay behind and the Elite is reformed?
That would be my guess.
Right? Is that the point?
That would be my guess.
And given the later in the show, the pump up speech that Don gave to Kenny, that would make some sense. There's no question about it. I think the only thing that I have a hard time with on that one is, I don't know if Callis makes sense alongside Moxley. I don't know if
it does. It does make sense. The more that it would explain why the group is being more aggressive. Like, if somebody's behind it, it makes more sense, because Claudio's not aggressive. Moxley is, but like, Claudio's not. Yuta's really not. Like, it's a different tone, and obviously, Brian's probably not part of the group anymore.
Right. I don't believe Brian is a part of the group anymore.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but like, I've said this before, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's one of those groups that really makes no sense to me, because it's the weirdest stable where they're like together, but not together. Like, they would sporadically help each other, but not all the time. It was a very weird presentation for that group, I think. Now it's more cohesive, that they're staying together and they're helping each other and doing all that crap. But before, they really weren't.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say, I would actually be really interested. I wish that if they could bring him back, just because I personally love him as a huge MMA fan, is Dan Lambert. I think would be awesome to lead the Blackpool Combat Club because of the American Top Team stuff and all of the stuff that they do. I would love to see Lambert.
I liked Lambert a lot. He was really good.
Lead the crew, and yeah, I mean, he's got the most wrestling. He's one of the best. He's got
he's
the most.
Such an easy heel.
Yeah,
really well.
And because he's a huge fan of the business is the funniest part. But he's also got the most as fellow action figure and collectors of collectibles. He's got the best and most elaborate wrestling belt collection of all time.
He's the one that gave Cody Dusty the belt that Dusty was
exactly right, and they're all used.
Mm-hmm.
He only buys used belts. Yeah, so shout out American Top Team and Dan Lambert for that matter.
By the way, imagine a promo segment with Lambert and Paul Heyman. How insane!
Oh, no doubt. And by the way, Matt Williams has been in the comments. So I got to give him a shout out. I feel terrible. I haven't shown any, but he said Dan Lambert was awesome, and he said a bunch of other cool stuff too. Shout out Matt Williams. Thank you for hanging in there with us this whole time. You're the man. And I agree. He was awesome. And he's just good at what he does. He's a huge lifelong fan. That's the coolest part about him, right? Like with his MMA background, I think he's just good for the business kind of period. Mm-hmm. There was a time actually where when the original UFC was being sold, that it was a bidding war between the Fertittas, which is where it ended up. And they're the ones who hired Dana White to run it, and Dan Lambert. And thankfully Lambert gave it up. It worked out well for all parties, but it's kind of funny in hindsight. Like Lambert's been around for years, and he's a cool dude. Really, like that's an autobiography to read. I don't know if there's a good one out there, but like there's amazing stories about that dude. He's incredible for sure. But anyway, back to what we were talking about with the Bucks, the Elite, and everything with that. Yeah, I'm with you on there's plenty of routes, right? Too. There are. And let's move along on the Dynamite cards. Or cards. There's only one card, right? We're
doing double duty, but it is.
That was the botch. Don't get me on that botchamania, please. But we've got up next. Let's actually talk about the Omega versus Vikingo match.
Yeah,
because I loved it, and I don't know who didn't. If you like wrestling,
I really loved it.
It was pro wrestling, right? And so, talk about how'd you feel about it?
Just the athleticism of El Hijo, which I was not really familiar with. Like I knew of him, but I never really saw him. And it's kind of funny that like I think AAA posted today like 3 hours worth of like footage of him, which at some point when I find time, I'm going to try to watch it because I really enjoyed what I saw because he's so athletically gifted. And it's only a matter of time. Like he's going to leave Mexico. Whether AEW is the one who signs him or Regal's on a plane to go recruit him, at some point that man is going to appear on American TV on a weekly basis. He's too good. He's too good to just be down there, to be honest. I thought they put on a hell of a performance. I love the fact there were no run-ins. It was a straight up, absolute showcase of athleticism. Like, it was flippy, and typically I like, something with a little bit more story, but the athleticism was so well done. And the match they didn't drag it out either. It was a good length. I was okay with it. Once in a while, a match like that, I'm completely okay with.
Yeah.
If they want to drag it out too much or it's too over the, it was just, especially because you hadn't seen him before. For the majority of the audience, they probably had not seen him, or it's a very small. Like as much wrestling as I watch, I haven't seen him. Now I know we did PWG, but I don't buy the DVDs, and why they don't stream, I don't understand. I've already written about that. I don't understand why in this day and age they're not on Fight or somebody at this point. No, we're going to wait 3 months to release a DVD of a match that's already been spoiled. So that's a side matter. But I mean, I enjoyed the match. I thought it was really well done. It was a great main event for them to do. I do find it interesting last week and this week. I felt like they opened strong. The last week it was the 4 pillar segment, and then at the end it was like, is the Elite back together? That little tease. This time it opens up. We don't know who took out the Bucks. At the start of the show, they're going in the limo, in the ambulance, and at the end of the night, it's okay. Don's flopping in the ring, pretending like Hangman hit him. Which I gotta be honest, I don't understand the logic of it. Just for the simple fact that this is on film. It's on the show. Like, it's not like Kenny is not able to see the replay that you just faked it. Like, it's a different scenario if Don was like laid out in the back and he goes, Hangman came after me, and there's no footage of Hangman attacking him. Then you can make that argument, but like, it's in the ring. I don't think there was logic there. You know what I mean? It was a very weird. This was not an Eddie Guerrero, I tossed a chair and pretended like I got hit type deal.
I hear you on that.
You
the
know
one
what I mean?
thing I will say though is, I do think it's one of those things too where you're working probably for not the very first time, but first time in a while together. And it's one of those things that's hard to plan, and it may not have worked out exactly as the idea was planned. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there, because I'll also say this. I think both Vikingo and Bandito, who a lot of people said similar things about when they debuted in AEW, outworked what anyone anticipated. Bandito hasn't really been totally featured since that initial signing and everything. Yeah. I think Vikingo, if I think there's room, for lack of a better term, and I think there's his athletic ability, to your point, and I think storytelling wise, it was overlooked. He was right in it all the way, and then he caught that V trigger with 10 minutes to go in the show. Yeah. He got a V trigger with 10 minutes to go in the show, and that kick out near the ropes was really cool. There were really cool spots throughout the match. I think Vikingo can't. There's space, right? I think by comparison, now your complaints about some of the logistics outside,
the logic on that,
yeah, that's why I went logistics. I was pun intended.
Yes.
But yeah, like I'm with you on that 100%. That would be where I run into trouble with this match, but I didn't run into much trouble because I really thought, and it reminds me every time, Kenny is that good. And we can talk about storytelling, but nitpicking a Kenny match about storytelling, there is storytelling involved. It's just overcome by his athleticism often. There is quite a bit of storytelling often when it's Kenny, and it's, can the other side match it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think last night Vikingo did an amazing job of coming at least close. Close enough that I was blown away by the match.
Now, that's the thing. If they're able to sign him, because AEW has such a bloated roster, and I don't know how prominently he'd be featured on AEW TV, I would build Ring of Honor around him.
I would too.
I'd stick him there. I'd stick Bandito there. Bandito's a former Ring of Honor world champion.
Right.
I'd build that friggin' promotion up with him. That's what I would do. And then when you have the ability, when you have the space after you've built him up, then you got to put him on Dynamite and you got to strap a rocket to his ass, because that's the guy you need to build, especially if you're going to end up losing people. And you're going to lose people. I mean, WWE deals with
no
it too.
doubt.
Like you're going to lose people. You may lose MJF in January. You don't know. So to prepare for any of that, I think you need to sign him. If you don't, you better be damn sure that Regal is going to be on a plane to Mexico to recruit his ass. Like, it. You know,
He's
Rey
just so
Mysterio.
good bell to bell. Like the move set is so cool. That is what I was so blown away by. Is
It's so different.
honestly,
I've never
it's
seen anything like it.
fascinating. The what he can do, and he does it safely too. You can
Yeah.
tell. That's
Yeah.
what's so amazing is he's not violent or reckless. It's really, really, really impressive to see what he can do.
Yeah.
But honestly, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Stokely Hook cracked my ass up. Let's start there.
Stokely's the best. Like, to
Stokely's
me,
great.
Stokely is so underrated how damn funny he is. Like, him going, here's my doctor's note to announce my retirement. They're like, this is a receipt from a restaurant. Like, I forget which restaurant it was. I don't know if it was, what was it?
It was Wingstop. It was Wingstop. I lost my mind on the Wingstop.
Yeah, I mean,
I wanted to see what the order was.
Yeah, I mean,
lemon pepper, I would imagine.
Stokely's the best. Like, to me, like, for an entertainment value, Stokely is pure entertainment. I mean, the match was what it was. I wasn't expecting much from that. I was expecting the entertainment from Stokely, and him trying to get out of it, I thought was great. You know, them backstage giving comments to one another, going, "We didn't train him for this," or stuff like that. Like, right. I mean, that was the gist. But I mean, there's not much to talk about this other than how great Stokely was with it. I mean, the match was what it was. We weren't expecting much, so it was kind of what it was.
I thought Stokely was hilarious. I thought the match was hilarious, and I think, honestly, like, it's worth. I thought Hook deserves a little bit of credit. You know why? Because, number one, the hip toss he threw him over the railing on was a dangerous spot. And given that Stokely knows how to bump, as we know, but he doesn't bump all the time. That's an easy one to mess up, and he put him right over the top of it.
Yeah.
And for a guy that actually comes from a judo background, knowing how to torque your hips and knowing how to slam someone, it would have been easy for him to break his tailbone, and he didn't do it. He put him right on his back, and he was in all the right spots. Running into the crowd is not an easy thing to do. We see it often on the main roster. We see it often on AEW television. From a guy as young as Hook, we don't see it that often. And to go chase a guy down into the crowd, even as experienced as Stokely is, even as smart as we know Stokely is, and even as good of a performer as he is, that is impressive out of Hook because he's got to control the action there physically because he is the aggressor. And so as much as I'm 1,000%, Stokely is a world class. Stokely deserves every bit of his flowers. He's amazing. He's hysterical, number one. His timing is incredible. He's amazing at his job. He gets it, all of that. Hook deserves some credit for last night, though, too. And that's the only thing I would add because all of that he had to navigate, Hook's the one wrestling week to week, and neither of them do that into the crowd, do those type of spots often. And the exploder suplex onto the mat, that was where I was most blown away. That one, not a lot of guys, I don't care how big they are, have that in the tank to exploder suplex someone over the top of their head onto a mat safely like that, even on the outside. And you know, it's easy to watch. You know, they're easy to execute in the video game. It's the circle button and then the X button. And then I believe it's B and then A on Xbox. On PlayStation, it's circle and X.
We cover everything here.
That's the that's how you do those moves. And so, but in real life, those are not easy. You can't just like lift people. It's not that
easy.
That's not easy. But let's get
You need more than a charge controller.
You need more than a charge controller. Exactly. Let's get into, though, technically the main event of the evening, which is the Adam Cole promo.
Yeah, I got to be honest. It was what it was. I wasn't particularly blown away with it. You know what I mean? It's, Adam's facing somebody. Daniel Garcia should be at least a decent match, but I don't. I wouldn't have picked him as my first guy because, quite frankly, Adam's going over. Realistically, I'd be very surprised if Daniel beats him in Adam's return match. But then at the same point, I don't really know who they would put him up against. If it wasn't Daniel, I'm not really sure who else they would have put in that spot.
To be totally honest, we've had enough discussions about Daniel Garcia. I know you're not sold on him, but I really, really, really am. I've seen him wrestle live over the course of a couple years, a few times, and watching him over time. He does have charisma. I don't think he had the confidence to show it. And last night, with the sleeve hanging down and the hood pulled up and the stomp down to the ring, and even the biff on saying pro wrestler instead of sports entertainer.
Yeah.
I really believe in him because when you see him bell to bell, this is a guy with speaking of movesets, he's got a Bryan Danielson-esque moveset. Like he can do, he has moves in the corner. He's got off the ropes moves. He's got grappling acumen. He's got a springboard in the bag, right? He's got moveset wise, he can do literally everything. And this is where Daniel Garcia does not get enough credit. And I want you to do me a favor as my friend, Anthony. Go watch this match with Adam Cole. He is underrated selling. If you go back and watch him, and he's as good as almost anybody at selling.
Listen, I've never questioned his ability in the ring.
Age,
I said I don't think he has charisma. That's what I said. I don't think he has charisma.
I'm starting to not starting. I do believe he actually has untapped charisma as the New York tough kid that doesn't take any shit. I think that's who he is at heart, because it actually comes through on screen in a sense.
Yeah, that's my only issue. I never said he couldn't wrestle. I think he can wrestle. I just don't think he's compelling enough with the charisma to draw people in. You could be a great technical wrestler. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean.
No doubt.
I think Yuta has the same problem.
Well, I'd have said the same thing about Bryan Danielson, though, by the way, in 2005.
Well, yeah. But again, he really didn't develop his thing until,
Well, and by the way, I would still argue that Bryan Danielson he's not charismatic. He's popular.
He's the ultimate underdog. That's the appealing part of that.
Right. But charisma wise, I would
say those segments with Kane were
I mean, I think even Christian's Captain Charisma gimmick was tongue in cheek. Right? Like, see that charismatic? Like, I don't know. Probably not. No.
Well, I still think probably one of his best nicknames was in TNA, the Instant Classic.
He's not selling me a Coke, Anyway, no, the Instant Classic was great too. The Instant Classic gimmick is great too. I love it. But my point is about Garcia. I think there's room for him. I actually really believe in him as a talent. And I think maybe new tights, but other than that, like, I think the dude's as good as anybody. I see a lot of like submission artist, technical. I think
the Jericho stuff might be holding him back. I think the Jericho. I think he needs to break away from the Jericho thing and kind of just
maybe at this point.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I think that's holding him back because now he's almost in the same boat of like a Sammy Guevara, where they're just kind of looked at as Jericho's lackeys.
Although I think the difference between the two is, to me, Sammy, I see a ton of flamboyance and charisma in that regard. And then like obviously the athletic ability. That's where the difference though is like, I mean, Daniel Garcia is kind of like a real life hard ass. Like He's a New York City kid with like legit submission grappling acumen, and not only that, he sounds like it with the accent, the way he talks, the way he. I mean, he sounds serious, like someone you don't want to mess with.
Yeah. Let me offer a suggestion.
Yeah.
Because I think this would help both of them. I would, if you break Garcia off of Jericho's thing, fully embrace the tough New Yorker thing.
Yeah.
Have him and Hook feud. Because
That'd be awesome.
I think that's the feud that could get both of them over, because Hook has this problem where it's kind of hard to match him up with anybody. Garcia's along the same way. I mean, you could hook Garcia up with Yuta, but the problem is they both have the same complaint from a lot of people, where there isn't that appeal to them other than just the wrestling part. But I think Hook and Garcia might be able to pull something off that could elevate both of them. If you did.
Almost interesting if somehow you were going to turn him temporarily babyface, so you get both out of it. You team them together against the Jericho Appreciation Society temporarily.
You could.
And then have them turn on each other. That's when you have the rivalry, right?
I think Garcia is really, I can't really see him as a face, but a heel I see. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yeah.
I think he needs to really achieve something as a heel and then get to the point where he could be a face. Like or he might be somebody that's just naturally always a heel. Like I don't know if he has a face run in him. Like that could be, right now. I mean, it could completely change a year from now. Who knows? But just based on now, I don't know.
100%. 100%. Either way, though, I really actually like where we got there on the Daniel Garcia thing. I mean, at the end of the day, though, Adam Cole, his promo, it was what it was. I enjoyed it. I'm excited for the reality show. So
am I.
Right? Like that's going to be huge.
Which we'll be able to watch because this is the last throwback that we're coast to coast.
But let's finally
do throwback.
Get into Throwback Thursday.
Yeah.
Which is our first WrestleMania experiences. We're going next week. We're only 1 week away. Not to pivot from AEW, but we're going to WWE and we're going to WrestleMania. So why don't you tell me about the first WrestleMania you ever attended?
The first and only Mania so far that I've attended was WrestleMania 15, which was in 1999. The interesting part about that was it was actually about a year that I was a fan. I first kind of fell into the product. It was, and I don't want to make this too long-winded, but it was a Sunday morning. Do you remember WWF Superstars, Clark? The review show that Kevin Kelly was the voiceover for. And I was flipping through the channels on a Sunday morning, and it had to be right after the Rumble because they were showing the burnt casket that Kane threw the Undertaker in and set on fire. So I always say the Undertaker-Kane rivalry is what got me into professional wrestling. And then Shawn Michaels' feud with Austin around the same time, the build up to WrestleMania 14. So to be a naive fan when I first started, that I did, I knew obviously it was staged, but didn't really know the ins and outs of the business at that point. But WrestleMania 15 was going to be in Philly. And at the time I had subscribed to WWF Magazine. And as a subscriber, they gave me an advanced chance to buy tickets. And I remember begging my dad. I went, I want to go. And my dad went, all right, we'll see if we can get tickets. So I remember he sent a check in to WWF Magazine or whatever for the tickets. And every day I was saying to him, like, did they cash the check? And then finally, he's like, they cashed the check. I was like, all right, I got tickets, because they wouldn't cash the check if you didn't get tickets. And I'll never forget it. Obviously we didn't know at the time when we bought the tickets that it was literally next to the last row. And I'll never forget it because my dad wasn't a wrestling fan. So, he was all legs. So he was all crunched up, but he didn't say shit. Like, he didn't complain because he knew it meant something to me. So it was a very cool experience. So to be able to, and it's at the time as a kid, it wasn't, you think because you're there, oh, this is the greatest WrestleMania of all time. Being there at WrestleMania 15. Really the only highlight of it is the Austin Rock match, which is the first time they faced each other at a Mania. And I really think that one is incredibly underrated. I think it is significantly better than the one at 17 that gets all the praise. Whether or not it's better than 19, it's been a while since I've seen either of them, but I've always liked 15 the most. And again, I'm biased because I was there. But, to be able to do another Mania, especially one with the crew that I'll be there with, is something really, I'm really looking forward to it.
No doubt, and I'm stoked. I'm as stoked as you are, by the way. The whole crew at Wrestling Republic here is going to be coming out to Mania here in Southern California. I'm in Southern California myself. It's going to be all time. My mom, just great story, Anthony.
Thank you.
Love you, Mama. You're the best. He's right. It is a great story. She's right. It is a great story. I'm sorry. Woof. That was a biff. But
this show is going in a whole other direction.
Anyway, no, that's not what I meant. But no, it was an amazing. It's an amazing story, and it's so cool. And I'm so happy that you're coming out, and I cannot wait to see you next week. But my first Mania experience, WrestleMania 12. My dad took me at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim at the time. It's now the Honda Center. It's where the Anaheim Ducks play, formerly known as the Mighty Ducks, right across the street from Angel Stadium in Disneyland. And I'll never forget, we had the opportunity to go into a thing called Suite 311B. And I actually got to meet the Wild Samoans and get my program signed. And I had a t-shirt, and going into the show, I was only 5 years old, and I had gotten some VHS tapes. I got the most unusual matches, and I got the Royal Rumble from that year. And so Sean was my guy all the way. And I'll never forget the moment that Sean's entrance music hit for that main event. They put a spotlight on Shawn Michaels, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Look, he's up there." And I turned and looked to the rafters, and sure enough, he was. And then he rode that zip line all the way down. And, we see it every time on the open of Raw and on the open of numerous WWE shows, Sean making the, "Oh, what a ride," right?
It's iconic.
Vince said. But as a kid, I remember thinking, like, that's as cool as you can be. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen, right?
It's
like,
larger than life.
I was only 5,
yeah,
but seeing him take the zip line down and the way the crowd popped for him, it was unbelievable to me, because in hindsight, I've become such a fan. And the pop for Shawn Michaels, and this is pre like full internet. Like, I mean, there's mild internet, but like, you're not like reading articles. So if you're reading The Observer, if you're reading Dave Meltzer, who we've mentioned on this show, you're buying it and it's on paper. It's like someone printed it. And the crowd popped for Shawn Michaels. He was the biggest babyface in that building by miles. It wasn't close. It was amazing the way that was built. Even as a 5-year-old, it didn't register at the time, but in hindsight, on rewatch, it's one of those things that you can hardly quantify. And Bret the Hitman Hart is one of the greatest of all time, but he was clearly the bad guy in that building that night. There was I don't want to say nobody, but given the audible crowd and my 5-year-old brain, I mean, every arm drag was a deep breath if it was Shawn Michaels on the wrong end. Right. It was one of those things where it was as simple as we want this guy to win and this guy to lose, but there was no like hatred or anything. It was kind of an incredible experience. And that was my first Mania. My second, and this is funny because I'll bring us both back up, was actually the year after your first, WrestleMania 16, WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, they build it as WrestleMania 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one I don't want to go back into the. I put you on the screen. See, Kobe, where are you at now? I'm kidding, but no, that was my mom and I went actually together. My father was out of town on a business trip, and I went to Mania 2000 with my mother, and that one is, I mean, it's memorable. It's a big deal. It's huge, and it's amazing that they both happened at the Honda Center, Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. It's one of those things where it's funny to me. We have a Mania week in the region, and they're not hitting that venue. It's kind of a shame. I really think it'd be smart to do one of those two shows at the Honda Center, because guess what? It's the same size building as Crypto Arena. And it doesn't make sense to me to not, given the history, especially during a Mania week, given the fact that you've had multiple WrestleManias at that venue, how do you not host a Raw or a SmackDown there?
Clark, is it possible that, and I think you and I have had this conversation, is it possible the Ducks are playing and that's why they can't do it?
That's an issue they could have gotten ahead of long ago.
No, but I'm just saying, could that be
now at the same time, that is not the issue. The issue is it's as simple as where they wanted a home base for Mania, and with doing Hollywood and the crypto deal, they decided, which is interesting to me, that, and I don't want to throw out like a Molotov cocktail late in the show, but why is AEW not running Honda?
I mean, the thing is, I guess they probably don't want to take apart the rings and the sets. They wanted them in one spot, which in this case would be Staples, Crypto, whatever the hell you want to call it. It'll always be Staples. We won't call it Crypto anyway. But I guess they probably want that there. They could have done NXT there if they really wanted to.
Wow, I mean, you are looking at an 18,000 seat arena. So that is an issue for NXT.
Well, but
I do not see that being filled, even with a stage block. That you're looking at a 12,000 seater, and that is something that I don't think NXT does. Even so, where Crypto is, have you seen the way that they blocked it off for Crypto?
No, I haven't.
No, it's. I mean, they're gonna get whatever it is, 11,000, which is great, but it's the 11,000 that didn't want to pay for Mania tickets.
The other aspect of this, and I'm assuming, is that when you make these deals for these arenas, they probably give you a better deal if you're going to do multiple shows there.
Right.
So, obviously Staples is the more glamorous one to be in.
Well, and that's what I find fascinating, though, is the Forum is in the same parking lot as SoFi.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's running the Forum, though, the week of.
Is anybody doing anything there?
There is a tented, it's like a WrestleMania pre-party. In the Forum parking lot.
Okay.
It's like a tented thing. It's not inside the arena, but that arena is fully empty.
Is that where they're running? Like, I know GCW is running stuff, but where are they? Like these indie ones,
they're in downtown. It's LA, so they're in downtown.
No, I just
they're
in general.
They're in a theater that's tiny. Let me put it that way. They're in
the same one Impact and New Japan's running. Yeah. Okay.
No, not the same one. The same one that GCW normally runs, the Ukrainian Event Center.
Oh yeah. Okay, gotcha.
But it's a cool venue. It's a very cool place to watch wrestling, by the way. That is no knock on the venue.
No,
it's just small. It's a very small venue.
I mean, that's the thing. WrestleMania weekend is such a special time for wrestling fans. We wait all year. And it's not just WWE. Like everyone's doing show. It's the one time a year where wrestling fans come together from all over the place, and just enjoy the wrestling. I'm sure people will be debating stuff and this and that. I'm sure there'll be arguments with us and Soul and whatever we're discussing. But at the end of the day, we love the wrestling. It doesn't matter what company it is. You know, we may disagree with certain things with it, but at the end of the day, it's about the wrestling.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I seriously cannot wait for next week. And it's funny to me because, you know, like I was saying, like, you know, you and I are going to go to a hockey game at the Honda Center during the week that you're in town. And then we're going to go to an Angel game. But, you know, geographically speaking, how is no one running that? For wrestling's sake, let's hope the next time we come back to LA, we're running all of those big stadiums. Like, come on. We got to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they're not doing anything there.
Yeah.
Especially because of the history there.
Oh, whoa, Papa Meltzer. So Punk is just being Punk again. Am I right?
You missed the first 45 minutes of the show.
If you're actually Dave, monster shout out. Thank you for everything you've done for the industry. If you're not actually Dave, Punk's not just being Punk again. In real life, that would be a character. That would be a character play.
Yeah.
If we're recklessly speculating on what he's doing in real life, though, then yes, he's also doing the same thing. So that is a two-sided answer. But either way, I mean, we're not really up against any clock, Anthony. We can go as long as we want, but I feel like, I mean, what do you want to hit an hour 28? Or should we just go a full hour 30 just for fun?
I think we go a full hour 30 just to say that
why not?
We did it.
What else did you want to talk about wrestling wise? We got Mania next week. I'm stoked. We're going to have literally the most content we've ever had for you guys. And it's not even close either. Like, there's not like another time where you can point to and be like, well, you guys had all this content that time.
No.
It's going to be just like, you're going to be sick of us. Like, if you actually do listen to our stuff, you're going to be so sick of us. It's going to be ridiculous.
I mean, you know, obviously one of the highlights is us cutting Soul's hair, which I think, you know, I think that's a highlight.
In fact, we don't even get to cut it. No, we're donating.
I know, but we get to witness it. So, you know,
we're going to film that too.
For anybody that isn't aware, 2 weeks ago, Soul was adamant on our Sunday pub show with the trivia. Soul said he was so confident that Jeff Jarrett would win Orange Cassidy's title that if he lost, he would get his hair shaved. And we said, well, if you do that, it's got to be during Mania. And then Clark arranged it for lots of love.
We're donating that to charity. So there's no other way.
So needless to say, Orange won and Jeff Jarrett lost. So therefore, Soul will be losing his hair come Mania week. So that is obviously one of the highlights for us. We're hitting up Ring of Honor. That should be another incredible show. And then obviously WWE
Mania night 1, 2, and Raw.
Which is
we're not going to do anything fun.
Which is the most important Raw of all. Yeah, I mean,
exactly. We're not going to have any fun.
We're not going to NXT. We're not going to SmackDown. No. Like, you know, it's we're
totally screwed up.
We totally dropped the ball on that.
Whoa.
Not like this hasn't been planned for a full year. So it's going to be a fun time in this. And next week when we do Throwback, it'll be the first time that Clark and I will be doing that together, not coast to coast,
live and in person. Can you believe that? I might punch him.
Yeah, I mean that's possible.
That could happen. I could punch him in the arm on air. Live on air.
This could easily turn into an Ace Steel
totally
mega situation.
Change everything. Could change everything.
Yes.
Either way, it's been a hell of a show. I'm glad we got to go extra time. Thanks for everyone that hung in there with us. You guys are the greatest. We got 15 seconds left in, Anthony. I'm going to try to time this right. You watch this right now.
The doubleheader.
9876. You guys are the best. We'll see you tomorrow. Right now.